Hello and welcome back to Morning Thunder. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me today, we've got Jamison Maxwell. And Jamison, just like we thought all along, the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be facing the San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference Finals. Game 1 going down on Monday. We're recording this Saturday evening. A nice little Western Conference Finals preview here. And let's be honest, the Spurs have kind of been this boogeyman, waiting in the corner the entire season for OKC. Ever since that, kind of disastrous stretch in December where OKC went 0-3 in a 3 weeks, pretty much like a 2-some-odd week stretch, the Spurs have looked like a potential kryptonite to the Thunder and their chances of repeating. But I don't know. As you and I know, what regular season results don't always tend to reflect in the postseason. What are your thoughts on the matchup early on, just in general? Like, not shocked at all, I'm guessing?
No, I mean, this was a long time coming. And the reality of it is I think I've kind of touched on this on a lot of our past pods, is like we're going to be very hyper fixated on how did the Thunder do versus the Spurs in the regular season. This was the downtime in this season, but still this season that the Thunder put out, which was injury ridden throughout the whole year, was still historic. And I think we're going to overlook into saying oh, we did so poorly versus the Spurs, this is not good. That's whenever they played really bad this season. It's no. This is the second best team in the West that also won 60-plus games, and they're a really good team, and you're going to have tough matchups versus them, and that's what this series is going to be. It's going to be a tough matchup, and I'm sorry, no more sweep anymore. It's gonna go multiple games after Game 4.
Yeah, it's a proper battle of the Titans. This is the first time, I believe, two 60-plus win teams have played each other in the postseason, I believe, in it's about 15 years, but it's the first time since the 80s that they've met before the NBA Finals, which is just massive. This is going to be a huge series. Two really good teams, two really disciplined teams, mostly, unless you're getting physical or the other team's getting physical with you and you get mad and elbow them in the neck. But got to defend yourself. But in general, I think this is going to be a really intriguing, tough tug of war type series. But I gotta ask, what have you seen out of San Antonio kind of since this playoff run happened? This is their first time out. They got two, I think, interesting opponents in the Trailblazers and the Timberwolves. But what have you seen out of Wemby and the Spurs?
I've been pretty impressed with their consistency. The games that they've lost, you look at, Portland at least gave them one in Game 2 to worry about, and then the Timberwolves took a couple games from them. But watching those games, it's I don't want to play hindsight here, but it's did I really look at those and go man, Spurs didn't look good there and they lost that game? No, the more so it was Spurs really should have won both of those games, or all three of those games, and they didn't, and that still shows a really good run and some dominance that they're putting forth as a team that hasn't been there yet, with a star player that hasn't been there yet. I mean, as Thunder fans, I'm not going to read into the Blazers series. I'm not going to read into the Minnesota Timberwolves series. I think that they're going to be a really stout opponent, and I think that for their inexperience as a group together, I think that they're playing up to the level where you need to in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, they've had their snags here and there, losing Game 1 to Minnesota, losing Game 2 to Portland, but they've recovered really well. They haven't, when the series has shifted to the road, they haven't let it really, get away from them too much. And I think that there's a lot of credit there, in that Portland series. You're without Wembanyama for Game 3. You're basically without him for Game 4, and you would have, in Minnesota, you would have won that game if Wimby was probably would have won that game if Wemby was playing. And you got to give them a lot of credit. They play really well as a team, as a unit. Their depth is one that can actually really match the Thunder in ways that the Suns and the Lakers haven't. And this is a situation where it truly is 0-0. Throw out everything you've seen and reset it, re-rack it.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that Timberwolves series, I feel like that's where we're going to get the most out of analyzing the Spurs, because no offense to the Blazers, but I don't know, there's much to say. I think a lot you can take into in terms of the Spurs loss will be that Game 1, not as much the Wemby ejection game. And really, their defense versus Minnesota was pretty darn good until that fourth quarter. They held them to 69 points in the third quarter, and it's just like there was a point where I was like, okay, Spurs, I feel like there's a lot of potential here, and you're missing a lot of good shots. Like Wemby was 0 of 8 from 3. Like, when is the doors gonna get blown off, and when are the Spurs gonna run away with this? And they just didn't. And games like that happen in basketball. You know, it happens all the time. As Thunder fans, like, we watch those games where we go on these shooting slumps and you look and we're just stuck in the mud with the team. We're like, what the hell is going on? And sometimes, like, the 48th minute, it's not your minute. Maybe if it went 2 more minutes, the Spurs could have won that game. So I think what it comes down to, looking at this Spurs team, is how is their shooting? I think that's the biggest thing that as Thunder fans we're going to look to is, like, how are they going to shoot the ball? I don't really believe in anyone outside of Vassell and Champagny. I mean, plus or minus Harrison Barnes, but maybe not as much as, like, a guy that, like, they touch the ball, I am, like, fearful of them shooting it. Everyone else, I'm like, go ahead, you got great percentages, you've been shooting the ball decent, but, like, it's like kind of like a Lugan Dort situation. I'm like, go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things about that stretch, and not to harp too much on it, but one of the reasons why the Spurs were as successful as they were is they were shooting the lights out. And you got to give them credit for stepping up in big moments and all that, but Stephon Castle was probably one of the hottest stretches he's ever gone through in his career in that stretch. And if San Antonio wants to win this series, they're going to have to knock down shots.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the reason that they win the series. It's Stephon Castle. It's not Victor Wembanyama. Everyone's going to talk about that. I'm going to be hyper-focused on how he plays.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you really look at those games, I mean, yeah, Wemby was solid, but he wasn't the reason why they were as good as they were. They were like in that stretch. It was because of the Spurs' depth, of their play style, and guys hitting big shots. Like they played as a unit, and that's why they're special. Like they're at that level. And like you said, it was Castle being as good as he was. And I think that's really the Spurs' biggest superpower here is their depth and their defensive athletic wings that can really keep pace with OKC. It's a really unique, really difficult challenge, and they're really tailored to play against OKC in a lot of ways.
I think you get a level of consistency from a guy like Devin Vassell. I mean, you'll get a little bit of a plus minus with Dylan Harper just because of his minutes and him being a rookie. In terms of wings, Keldon Johnson, you're going to get pretty consistent there. I think Stephon Castle's like way up and down. Like he can go for a game where he can go 5 of 6 from 3 or 5 of 7 from 3 like he just had versus Minnesota. And then there's games I'm sure he could go 0 for, I'm just like going through his last series, he was 5 of 7 from 3 in that game 6, 0 of 1 the game before that. Like what the heck? He went from 7 3-pointers and he made 5 and only shot 1 the game before. 2 of 6 the game before that. Like he doesn't have a lot of games like where he goes 0 of 1 other than the ones that like I feel like the defense almost says, okay, you did well before this. I'm not going to try to get screwed over by this. I'm going to rotate. I don't know if the Thunder are going to do that. We've seen that Thunder allow people to shoot the ball and the part of the rotation of their defense, and we leave corner 3-pointers open. I think this will be a scenario where we might dare Stephon Castle to beat us.
Yeah, I mean, the Thunder, historically, the past couple years, have left more corner 3-point shooters open than any team in the league, I believe. I swear I saw a stat like that at one point in time. They certainly tend to do it quite a bit, and it's burnt them in the past. I think the Nuggets kind of got them quite a few times in last year's playoff series. Certainly saw Hachimura hit a couple big ones in for the Lakers. So I'm intrigued to see how that pans out. For sure.
Yeah, like this, like looking at him too, and like the way he shoots the ball and the way he plays is going to be a big thing for this series. Like his jump this season was great. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about him as a most improved candidate, and he's shooting 33% from the 3 ball right now. The season before, he was at 28.5. So was still like congratulations by going up by 5%, but that's still not something whenever times get tough, things get dicey, Western Conference Finals, pressure. Can you come up to the plate and really show that you're a consistent shooter? A guy that was 28.5% last year, that's a lot to put on a guy, especially with his youth, to go out there and win a series for him.
Yeah, those numbers dip across the board, regardless of who you are. We can talk about playoff risers, playoff droppers, all of that sort of stuff. Just in general, it's way tougher to hit those shots in intense environments with this Oklahoma City defense cranked up to 11 in a way that it wasn't in the regular season. That's going to be
Yeah.
very intriguing.
After that Timberwolves game, I bet you he's way above. He's probably in the 40s. I'm just looking at like his playoff stats right now. I don't have the percentage in front of me, but I bet you he's above his regular season. So it's let's see if that continues to stick. But I think guys like that, like if we're looking at their starting lineup, we were talking about this is a guy that could beat us. You would think that you would want to put one of your best players on him to guard, but at the same time, like I don't know if I want that, right? Like with Jalen Williams coming into the starting lineup, we're going to be a lot bigger than the Spurs are in a typical starting lineup. So like, do we need Dort over on De'Aaron Fox instead?
Yeah, I think that the matchup aspect of all of this is going to be intriguing. I feel like Case and Wallace could be really solid on Fox. I feel like this is very much a series where the starting five might not be the best five. And I'm intrigued to see what Mark comes up with as, I don't know, that sort of solution to this San Antonio issue, because at the end of the day, you kind of can't overload. You can't go too small and try to match their guard setup because you have a giant, 7'4" Frenchman in the middle. And that presents its own problems because, I'm not sure you can play the whole let's put a smaller guy on Jokic game or like type of thing with Wembanyama. They attempted that a couple times in the regular season and it didn't work. It's regular season, totally different story. But that is going to be such an interesting knot to figure out, is how you slow down and solve the Wimby issue while dealing with all the other issues the Spurs present.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the level of Alex Caruso in the minutes he got in that Game 7 versus Jokic, but I do think that we will see small ball out there with Wimby and then pushing him out of the lane and playing extremely physical and just diving down, digging every single time he gets the ball in the post, double teaming, just because we could probably play 5 out better than we did in the regular season because we didn't have Jared McCain. You remember that last game that we were playing the Spurs, we had like just gotten him off the trade deadline, so he wasn't ready yet because it was like that trade deadline game was the Spurs-Thunder, and it was that weird wackadoodle like Jalen Williams all-star game that he was on a run with all of our injuries. Yeah,
the J-Will all-star game with Kenny Hustle closing the game out, like stuff like that. And they kept it within puncher's distance. They put it within puncher's distance of that one, honestly.
Yeah, let's pull up the stats on that one. Yeah, J-Will had 24 and 40 minutes, 24 and 12, 4 assists. Damn, good for him.
Yeah,
Kenny getting the start. Kenny getting 35 minutes and getting 4-7 from 3. That is such a power move. That was a really fun game to watch. But then you realized it and you're like, oh yeah, why is Kenrich Williams starting? It's because our bench players were Chris Youngblood, Brandon Carlson, and Brooks Beinhardt. Our 2 ways were only 3 people off the bench. Yeah. We really didn't have much to give there.
It was the second night of a back-to-back in the middle of the injury crisis.
Yeah.
Just threw those guys out there and hoped you could get some sort of result.
And it was also whenever we were just letting Chet miss a couple of games here and there, you'd give him the back spasms diagnosis, and you're just like, oh, he's out this game, but it's obvious it's load management. Hartenstein, I think, got scratched in the eye. It was just a very weird.
That's right, yeah.
Very weird thing going on there. But that was a fun game to watch, and I don't think there's too much to take from that one. I think really what it comes down to is that first game, the one that was before the Christmas stretch, the 23rd, the 25th. That's kind of a weird, interesting scenario whenever you play them back to back. The 13th one, that was an explicit, December 13th, where it was explicitly closed.
The NBA Cup game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time with that one, this Wimby was still on minutes restrictions. He didn't even start that game. It
was his first game back.
Yeah. So it's this is just such a weird regular season matchup that I could try to pull up everything and try to analyze it, but it's really, I don't know. I don't really care about the everything that happened in the regular season and all of the hype and the media surrounding it. I feel like these two teams are so different and so much more mature and ready for the moment.
Yeah, they've both evolved. And I'm not trying to look at this and be like, oh, the Thunder have changed and they're different, and pretend the Spurs haven't also grown and changed and evolved. Because like you said, Wimby was coming off the bench, and that was a very weird wrinkle to figure out. I remember in those 3 games, he came off the bench each time, and I think was definitely a game changer. It was very different. I think Wembanyama's at his best when he doesn't have to play a ton of minutes. And you've seen that a little bit. I feel like you saw that a bit in Minnesota's game 1 where, they really made Wimby work for it. I thought that was interesting. But, I mean, that stretch was odd. J-Dub's wrist was still very, very messed up. And clearly he wasn't the same type of player. I know he's still kind of dealing with hamstring type of stuff, but he's going to be pretty fresh for this one. And if he's not, ailing hamstring Jalen Williams is way better than ailing wrist Jalen Williams, to say the least, I think. AJ Mitchell barely played, and even then he wasn't the AJ Mitchell that we know right now. And as you said, Jared McCain was in Philadelphia at the time. So, I mean, they're different teams. The Spurs, on the other hand, have a ton more experience. They're, they've gone through some playoff battles. They've had to figure things out. I think it's going to be, it's going to be a great battle. Both of these teams are truly phenomenal, and I think we're going to get this for years to come.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, when we talk about different teams, and it's the playoffs, so it's a different game too. What style of game is really going to ratchet up more in the playoffs? The Spurs play their brand of basketball. They're doing a good job. They play through a superstar. The brand of basketball in Oklahoma City is physicality, and everyone's going to whine about it. But guess what? This series, we are going to be unbelievably physical. It is going to be so bad. Get ready, Thunder fans. Everything that you are annoyed about with the media, it's going to get worse. You're going against the darling of the NBA, and the way to win this series is put an elbow into Victor Wembanyama's chest every single time you can and piss him off. He is in his head. Yes. Right.
Not like a Artest bang elbow. It's one of those, you needle.
A little forearm.
Right, that's what we're talking about. We're not saying flagrant foul elbow.
No,
we're talking Steven Adams, physical.
If you play basketball, you know what. It's you put your arm into their chest. If they cross the lane, you let them know that you're there. You do not let him move without you having your hands or your body something you're touching him. And the reality of it is we saw his face of how he was bothered by the Timberwolves for playing physical with them and how he retaliated. And that as soon as you get a guy in his head and you could see the anger that he had, that's whenever you win. And if he thought the Minnesota Timberwolves were being physical, goodness gracious, he is in for a rude awakening. This lineup that we have is not congratulations when you're going across the lane. It's not Bones Highland there anymore. It's going to be Alex Caruso this time. It's going to be a little bit different, so I feel pretty good about Yama's.
Yeah. I think that's what you have to do. You have to just keep it coming. You have to keep it constant. And the Thunder have such a depth of defenders that you can just kind of keep at it. And they're always going to be fresher than whatever Wimby's doing. Wimby's going to need to play a lot of minutes. And that's the one thing I feel like he hasn't quite done yet, is play a ton of minutes, game after game, where you desperately need him. And, you've seen that you've been able to get at him. You've been able to grind on him a little bit and get a little physical with him. And that throws his game off. That throws the whole team off. And I'm very intrigued to see how that works. Because we've seen this Thunder team bite back with some intensity in the past. That one game they won in OKC, you could tell that they wanted to make a statement that night. And they absolutely did. And I'm just intrigued to see how the Thunder's brand of defense is, well, one, officiated, but two, I don't know. This is going to push Wemby to his limits, and I'm excited to see what happens.
And I think you could already see how it's being officiated and how everything is changing things. Shea's whistle is down. He is getting double teamed. A lot's going on. Whenever he does get to the lane, there's a bunch of people there. You can see it's changing a lot, and we expect that. All of these Chris Finch shenanigans, complaining, and all of that have finally gotten enough to the refs into their subconscious. But the reality of it is, I'm going to lean into this. I'm not going to say this as a negative, but if you play physical, The refs cannot continue to call every single tiny touch foul, and especially in the playoffs. And that's just how we're going to have to win this series. We're going to do the same thing that everyone hates the Thunder for doing, is being the most physical team on the court. And if we get a lot of fouls called, so be it. But whenever we're stealing the ball and getting them out of their rhythm on the other side of the ball, that's how we're going to win. And I think that you could see this. There's a couple of teams that realized Wembanyama's weakness was just being physical and poking at him and getting under his skin. I think there was a stretch in February-ish, if I recall, because I remember the Toronto Raptors did it to him, and then Brooklyn did it to him the game like the night after, where he like just had a horrible stretch. Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. So on the 25th, the Raptors just did this thing where they just completely just demolished him. He went 3 of 12 from the field. Then the next day he went 3 of 9 from the field. It's this way of just like pushing him out of the lane, getting him out of his comfort zone, taking him away from his spots, and then just putting him in a situation where he's just going to get angry. And I think that's how we win.
I agree. I think his defensive impact is going to be really intriguing on this. The Thunder love to, try to get to the hoop, get easy buckets, and he just throws he changes everything on that side of the court, because at any moment he might come flying in to block your shot. And I think one of the lessons learned from that game 1 in against Minnesota is to just kind of throw the blinders on and try to not let it affect you to that same degree, for multiple reasons. One, because it's physically taxing to block a shot like that. So if you do it 12 times a game, that's a bit tiring. But two, it's not the end of the world. And I think the idea of trying to completely remove that part of the game limits your offense more than more than the impact of a block does, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think as soon as you play into their trap of not driving because there's the big bad wolf down low, their defensive scheme wins out. These defenders, these wings that we talked about, will feel a little bit better about giving you an angle and playing on your hip if you know that Victor Wembanyama is waiting for you. So you're just going to have to challenge him. You're right. And when it comes down to it, who's stopping us pulling up from 6 feet rather than right at the cup and just doing we talked about AJ Mitchell earlier in the pod. And it's the steps that he's made to grow his game in the playoffs. His game sets up perfectly for a guy like Victor. His short range game is how he makes his money. It's right outside the paint or right on the block. He can go up and get into his spot and then hit his shot. And I still think he could still get to the cup on Victor, but especially for a guy that's not as experienced as Shai or J-Dub or anything, that's where I want him to cook. But Shai's got to go out and get his. So especially if we see the same kind of defense that Shai's been getting played in the first 2 rounds, he's going to have to go out there and tackle him head on, because if he doesn't, I think he could get completely eliminated again, like he has kind of seemed like he has in the past couple of games.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued to see how that pans out if they try to adopt the Lakers strategy of let's make the others beat them or beat us. I don't know if that is the right strategy, because I don't know if I don't think they'll do it, because I think the Spurs have enough good defensive talent to kind of take Shai one-on-one on it. But I'm intrigued. I think Shai, this is a big series for Shai. I think it's going to be really intriguing to see how he handles it. Yeah, and I think it's a massive test. And I think one thing that's interesting too, to some degree, look, the MVP award's getting announced tomorrow, Sunday. It's going to be Shai, and they're going to award it to him before game 1. So you're going to have the whole, we're doing it in front of Wimby, type of storyline. So get ready for that. But
who cares?
I don't know.
Who cares if it's doing it in front of Wimby?
Idiots on the internet who think that he had a shot of winning MVP this year.
No, it's just these people that are lazy and want to be the first guy in. I voted for Wimby before he was the MVP. We all know Wimby is going to be an MVP one day. We all know it. But getting in early whenever he doesn't deserve it does not make you some NBA smart guy. Everyone wants to, there's a big thing going on social media. It's elite ball knowledge and being the NBA smart guy. No, that's just a shortcut and a stupid way to do it.
Yeah, and it leads to a paper trail of really, really dumb tweets and be yo, I think the Los Angeles Lakers have a chance to beat the Thunder and blah, blah, blah. I saw another, the same guy who did that also was or one of the people who did that were also yeah, I could really see the Spurs sweeping the Thunder here. And I'm okay, come on now.
I mean, part of sports media is just making bold statements. I mean, you got to respect the grind.
Yeah, whoever's loudest wins sometimes. But all right, so from a Thunder perspective, who is the one player you think is going to have the biggest impact outside of like Shea, like the obvious MVP?
Yeah, I think it's got to be Chet, in my opinion. I don't think we're going to talk enough
Wow.
about it. Yeah, because see, exactly, you're not going to hear this a lot. But what we've already forgotten, which we've thrown away, is whenever this whole Spurs versus Thunder was started, it was Chet versus Wimby. It wasn't Spurs versus Thunder. It was Chet versus Wimby. You know, we always talk about it's like, oh, Wimby doesn't like Chet and Chet doesn't like Wimby. You know, Chet's seen himself in the mirror these first two series, and we've seen the efficiency and the scoring at the rim. It's like, how can he unlock his game and still score at the rim whenever Wembanyama's down there? And I think he feels exceedingly confident in his game, and I think that when we talk about, who can win us these games, if we truly are having struggles with our guards because of driving and, the defense from the perimeter of their defenders, I think it's got to come down to Chet's 3-point game. He's got to put up a lot, and then I think he's got to get a lot of offensive rebounds and finishes. I think that's where it's going to come. Wembanyama is going to cut over, and that's going to either leave Isaiah Hartenstein or Chet for an offensive rebound and a finish. And I think that's that's the X factor right now that I think that would allow Thunder to win some big games. And if you're having a 20-10 from Chet, I think it's going to be tough for San Antonio.
That's a really big statement, because I feel like a lot of people almost automatically default to, oh yeah, that Wimby will just erase Chet, kind of, because he looked bad in the regular season. But I mean, that's a really good point.
Chet's a different player right now, honestly. The way he's playing right now, he's found what he's comfortable in. And other than like him still trying to explore a little bit at the beginning of games with his kind of like back down and like mid-range jumpers, which really haven't succeeded yet, he's been killing it. He's found his role and he's been doing great.
Yeah, when he's in the mode of like, this is just who I am, that's the best. When he kind of has to branch out, and I understand wanting to experiment and try to, make your offense a little bit more dynamic. I get it, but I fully agree with you. He's just been incredible. Yeah, I'm excited to see who will kind of make that kind of hero moment in this series, because you never quite know. You really just never know. I feel like with the Thunder, mainly because you never know what Mark's going to throw out there. I don't think either of us would have expected as many Jared McCain minutes as we got.
No,
he didn't really get much at all against Phoenix, and was an absolute star against the Lakers. So
I'm curious of how we're going to react to that too, Bobby, because you can kind of play around a little bit with the Lakers and the Suns. You can put out Jared McCain even knowing that his defense will be a net negative compared to the other people you'll put out on the court, but his offensive shooting is going to be such a huge positive. It's going to be harder to play a guy like that versus the Spurs. And like, who is he going to guard? You can put him on Champagnie in the corner. But when it comes down after that, like, if Dylan Harper's out there, like, I don't know if I trust him guarding Fox, Harper, or oh my gosh, Stephon Castle.
And that's why I think it'll be a better Joe series, I think, honestly. Because Joe, he's not an elite defender by any means, but I think he's better in that category than McCain. He's a little longer. He can be a little bit more dynamic at times. Although McCain has been pretty good at scoring beyond just shooting threes. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see who steps up, because you really just don't know until
I think we could see those, those McCain-Joe 5-man lineups where we have just a bunch of shooting out on the court. I think we could see that in like the depths of like the third quarter, the depths of the second quarter, and really just test it out and see what happens. Especially if Wembanyama is giving us some problems at the rim. Screw it. We might fall on the defense side of the ball, but we are just going to just fire from three. And we saw some great things. Like right when we got, McCain off of the trades and we were playing those lineups, we saw some things there that could work. And I don't think we've seen too much of it recently. We talked about it in our group text. I think Ford made a statement about this. Is like, Mark's going to just sit there. He's going to write his notes. He's going to get all of his data, and then he's going to put it in his back pocket whenever he can use it. And I think that's a lineup you might see to say, hold on, I think this could work. This could go out there and really like catch fire. And if it doesn't, you just pull back. But if it does work, it could win a game.
You just have so many options that you're not stuck to play a certain way or play with a certain lineup. Because I mean, there's the like hyper 3-point shooting lineup. There's the hyper, all defensive lineup. You can do, sort of a, let's put all our playmakers out on the court together and do like Shai, AJ Mitchell, J-Dub. Like, I think that would be a really interesting like triumvirate there.
You're going to see a lot of that.
I think we are. It's going to give like not 1-to-1, but it's going to give vibes of like when we used to throw out Chris Paul, Schroeder, and Shai.
I was like, what is he going to say? I was waiting for like Harden, Westbrook, Durant. Then he hit me with the Schroeder, Chris Paul, Shai combo. But I guess it kind of works. Would Shai still Shai in this situation?
In a weird way, I think Shai or like J-Dub would be Shai as like the slightly bigger guy, because it's a scaled up version of that version. J-Dub isn't a point guard, but he has been a primary ball handler on, several second units, that sort of thing. So I don't know. But regardless, I think that would be, I would love to see that. Because AJ's really come into his own and just taken a star turn. And I don't know. I think that'll be very intriguing to see.
Yeah, and I think a lot of AJ's rise has been, expected for Thunder fans watching him this season, and especially the hype that he was getting near the beginning of the season before he got hurt. But coming into this series, I do want to temper a little bit of expectations of AJ. We wanted to catapult him into this upper echelon of guards. And who was the athlete that was saying? I think it was Lou Will or something. No, it was Lou Will was making fun of the guy who was saying it. It was Chandler Parsons was saying like he'd take him over LaMelo Ball. And I'm
come on.
All right. Let's chill here. Like, he's done really well. He's great. And I think that this is a guy that we should really look at and say he's a legitimate part of this Thunder team moving forward into our dynasty. But the San Antonio Spurs is going to be a tough matchup for him, and he's not going to be cooking Austin Reaves like he was last series. It's like he's not going to be having that kind of defender on him. So I would say like I still think he's going to go out and get his, but I wouldn't expect him to be putting up 25 and 5, a night.
Yeah, the Spurs don't have the same weak spots as the Lakers or Suns for sure. So yeah, I'm intrigued. I think it'll be really cool to see if AJ can continue that stretch, and I think he'll be very, very needed in this series. All right. We're about at our time, but I wanted to ask you, what is your series prediction, and what games you think the Thunder or Spurs, whoever you have winning the series, will win?
I've been really struggling with this one. I've kind of gone back and forth. I think it's going to be Thunder in 7. And there's a part of me that's selfishly, I say this a lot on the Schooner Pod, where it's like whenever I'm like struggling and you just kind of go with vibes, you just close your eyes and you're like, what is like the most likely scenario ending? I'm like, do I think like Thunder in 5? I'm like, maybe. I just don't see it. Like Thunder in 6, okay, I see that a little bit. Thunder in 7, the hype around it, and I'm freaking on 24-hour on-site call in the hospital that day. Yeah, I see that happening. That game's gonna happen. It's 100% gonna happen, and I'm gonna have to watch it from the hospital like I did Game 7 last year. So that's what's gonna happen. So I think we take it to 7, and it's gonna be frustrating. And we're gonna lose. We're gonna lose. Probably Game 2 again, and we're gonna get really pissed.
Yeah, I struggle with it because I think it's gonna be either one of two things happens. Either it's Thunder in 5 or Thunder in 7. I don't think they're gonna win it on the road in San Antonio. I'm like right on that line between 5 or 7 because I think they come out hot, win Game 1. I think the Thunder win both in OKC, but I'm biased, and I think it's Thunder win Game 1, 2. They win Game 4.
Okay.
In my heart of hearts, I feel like it's like there's part of me that thinks it's gonna be 5, but
if you're saying they're winning 1, 2, and 4, Bobby, just say it, man. Just say 5.
Yeah, but my thing is, I think the team is more like, I think mentally I'm like, oh, this team's way better than it actually is at times at home. The concept of them losing at home doesn't feel real, even though it totally is possible. Yeah, I'm going to go Thunder in 5. I think it's a really tight 5, though. I think it just pans out really, really well. The Thunder's experience doesn't allow San Antonio to kind of get those, or to get an upset in those first 2 games. They steal one on the road, and they close it out at home. That's just my thought on it. I think it's going to be really narrow. I think it's going to be really tough. And I don't mean to say 5 as in like, I think it's going to be a close 5 or a not close 7, if that makes sense. I think they're going to be closer to ending it in 5 than they are extending it to 7.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
I mean, I get what you're trying to say here. I think it's going to be a good series either way, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll
Game 2 is going to stress me out, though. I feel Game 1, I feel good. I feel pretty good about what we've done in the past seasons. The boogeyman of Game 1. This whole, like, Shai's continuously talking about working on his rust. You know, whenever you worry about a Game 1 coming off a long time of rest, you think about people who are not ready for the moment. Like, I think we're ready. Game 2 is where the Spurs are going to see us. They're going to see our scheming that we did for the past week, and then they're going to counterpunch. So that's going to be the biggest game of the series, in my opinion.
I think that's fair. And if you can withstand that punch and find a way to win Game 2, I think you have to feel thrilled. But I don't know. I'm intrigued to see how it pans out, and I've said that a billion times. But this is legitimately probably the most excited I've been for an NBA, like a series, you know, a non-final series in a good while. Entering it from the jump, I think this is going to be an absolute just war of attrition.
Does it feel like the Western Conference Finals? Does it feel like that?
Because, it feels bigger than that somehow.
Yeah, it's just very odd because, like, coming into it, we just cakewalked into it. It's like, okay, we're here. We're great. This is awesome. Felt like, you know, like we had like a bye in a tournament. But then it's like the opponent, you look on the other side and all of like the NBA media and all of the narratives that are going around. It's like, yeah, I think this feels pretty big. So I'm a little bit nervous, but it's good. It's good. I know the guys on Down and Dunk talked about this, and I talked about it last year a lot. It's like the nerves of watching a game. It sucks sometimes, but it feels so good when it works out. Man, I'm itching for it. I want those playoff nerves, that like end of game nerves where it's like you don't know if you're going to win or not, and if you lose, things go really bad. We're going to get a lot of that this series.
Put it this way, it hasn't felt like the playoffs really in these past 2 runs, because there are so many long stretches without basketball. We've only had 4 home games. Like, my t-shirt stash is very small right now, and usually it's not to this degree, but it feels like the Western Conference Finals, if that makes sense. Like the moment itself feels big, especially compared to last year where you've survived this just brawl with the Denver Nuggets, and then you get the Timberwolves, and you're like, oh, well, this isn't bad at all. But in terms of playoff nerves, playoff vibes, yeah, I'm feeling them big time as we approach Game 1. Massive, massive series. This is why you watch the sport, folks. So,
Have you arranged San Antonio travel?
I'm working on figuring that out. Our initial plan was not doing 3 or 4, but I think we might try to do 4.
TBD
So we'll see
of how the series goes.
There's just a lot. There are a lot of moving pieces, and you know, it's Memorial Day weekend, and you know, my birthday's on Friday, so there's a lot of tricky things. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, so all right. Well, that was another edition of Morning Thunder. Thank y'all so much for listening. We'll be back after Game 1 to recap that. We'll recap Game 1, and I just can't wait to see, you know, what happens, and hopefully the Thunder set the tone and take that one. Because otherwise, panic. Oh, my God. But anyways, thank you all so much for listening. And, by the way, make sure to hit up the description if you're in OKC for an extra 5% off your order at 74C Meat Co. Stock up for Memorial Day weekend. You know, these Thunder late playoff nights, you know, these weekend deals, it's perfect. So, like, truly some of the best beef and pork you'll have in OKC. Promo code Bobby down below. So, Jamison, thank you so much for popping on. And thank you all for listening. See you next time. Thunder up, everybody.